we on, Mary? Notice is hereby given that a work session of the Salem-Keizer School Board District 24J of Marion County, Salem, Oregon is called for 6 p.m. Tuesday, January 28, 2014 in Room 2 at the Support Services Center at 2575 Commercial Street, Southeast Salem, Oregon. This meeting is called for the purposes of receiving information regarding career technical education. Board members present are Jim Green, Chuck Lee, Rick Kimball, Paul Kylo, Nancy McMorris-Oddix, and Chris Brantley and Jeff Fayville are absent. Before we turn it over to, are we turning it over to Salam or to you?
I'll just make a brief comment.
I'm going to turn it over to Chuck Lee real quick for an announcement from him.
Thank you, Chair Green. I just wanted to remind the board members that I'm here tonight not as a member of the school board, but as a employee of Mountain West Career Technical Institute. And because we have such a high interest in working on career technical education in this community and establishing a career tech high school, I just wanted to make it clear that that's my role here tonight, and not as a board member. I won't be participating in any votes on the matter, and I'm here strictly as an employee tonight. So I'll be making some comments and joining with Salam and making some presentations and things, but and I'm here to answer questions. Okay.
Superintendent Radich.
Thank you. As the board is aware, you received a letter on December 17th of 2013 from Mountain West, Larry Tokarski, president, expressing interest in forming a career technical education partnership with the Salem-Keizer Public Schools. And my understanding is there was some discussion about among the board members, and while the board didn't vote, at least gave staff the indication that you wanted us to proceed to investigate this. So Assistant Superintendent Salam Noor has done a tremendous amount of work on behalf of the school district, looking at programming needs, doing some basic cost estimates, and then certainly trying to work in partnership with Mountain West to come up with some concepts that we could share with the board this evening. The discussion is really to help respond to give you some background, to respond to questions you might have, and then we're going to try to tie this up with maybe 2 or 3 essential questions for the board, hoping to give us some direction as to potential next steps. So I think at this point, I'll turn it over to Salam for his presentation, and I know Chuck plans to follow with the presentation and hopefully have some discussion among the board as to questions you might have, and then potential directions for staff.
Salam.
Thank you, Paula and Jim. So as Paula mentioned, on December 17th, Chuck, on behalf of Mountain West Career Technical Institute, and I believe Ron Hayes was also present, presented a concept paper that outlined the possibility of a private-public partnership that supports and expands CTE programs in our district. You have this in front of you, and I'd like to direct your attention to the second page, and if you could just glance at the bullets. And at a very high level, the bullets reference this partnership, the possibility of constructing a facility or acquiring a facility that could house CTE programs, and then the second portion deals specifically with Salem-Keizer School District and the obligations and responsibilities that we would have relative to this partnership, specifically around program design, program development, staffing, et cetera. I recall at the time.
Your mic might not be on, I'm not sure.
I'm sorry.
Your microphone may not be on.
I recall at the time that the board expressed interest in the concept and directed staff to provide additional information, and especially relative to the cost of any potential investments as part of this private-public partnership. So tonight we will provide you with that information that addresses these areas and that can help inform the board's direction to staff and next steps. There are 3 parts to our presentation. I'm going to provide an overview of CTE in our district, current programs and opportunities for growth. We felt it was really important for the board to get as much information as we possibly can provide you at this time. So you have the depth and breadth of data, so to speak, or information to help inform the direction that you provide us as a staff and as a partnership. Then Chuck will go over the concepts and ideas presented in December and provide an update to the board, and also use that as a way to get direction on next steps. I will close with the specific cost estimates that you asked for, emphasizing that these are rough estimates. And for the proposals that Chuck is going to share with you, and then we have some discussions that will help facilitate some dialogue and inform your thinking and inform the direction that we go with this. Okay? So, and I want to apologize in advance. We're going to give you a lot of information, and the purpose of it is not for you to delve deep into the content of it. We just want to give you an orientation to what we do relative to CTE, how we develop programs, how we design them and implement them in our district. Okay. So, forgive me for turning this direction.
Mary,
So-
can you kill that light that's over that? Thanks.
We felt it's really important for the board to understand what CTE programs are. And we're fortunate to have several of CTE programs in our district. And they're important because they provide exposure for students to career pathways and opportunities in our community and elsewhere, if you will. They give students the opportunity to gain technical skills based on industry standards and certification that lead to certification. And this helps them be ready for entry-level jobs or transition into a community college program or some other program that they're interested in, either at a community college, university, or other type of school. CTE programs facilitate a lot of engagement for our students, engagement and retention. Many students actually do well academically in our CTE programs because they see the relevance, they see the application, and many of them complete the program and stay in school and graduate. So they're important for a variety of reasons. And they also help facilitate a smooth transition from high school to college. If a student is actually interested in pursuing a career in automotive, in information technology, in manufacturing, we line up these programs so the student completes a series of courses at the high school level, then they transition to a community college and potentially university. And we'll show you how that lines up. So they get college credit in high school, and they participate in what we call a program of study. The career-related learning skills and standards are a graduation requirement, so students that participate in these programs fulfill a graduation requirement. Okay? So in our district, we're moving towards establishing premier CTE programs. So you may ask yourself, what's the difference between a CTE program and a premier program? So a premier program is one that is often referred to as a program of study, or a 2+2+2, meaning 2 years of high school, 2 years of community college or trade school, and potentially 2 years of university education. So it's not a limited or a terminal program. It actually leads to further education and training for the student. It involves a sequence of courses that build on knowledge and skills. It leads to technical and academic skill attainment, as we mentioned. Most of them are articulated. Actually, the premier programs are articulated with post-secondary partners. Temecula is one, for example. Many of them allow the student to earn college credit while in high school, and they're all based on industry standards and lead to certification as they exit from high school possibly, but definitely as they participate in a community college program. That could be a 1-year certificate, a 2-year certificate, a specialization certificate. So this is really what we call a premier program in the Salem-Keizer School District. Not all programs are premier programs, but we encourage teachers and schools to develop their programs along these areas. So we talked about a program of study, and I'm going to give you an example of what a program of study looks like. And I think this is really the best way to explain it. Tim, if you pass that out, please. So again, a program of study is one that's organized along a pathway, and it's one that facilitates transition from high school to a community college to a university potentially. It's very structured, and this handout that you have coming around, and I have extras. Thank you. So we have programs of study in fire science, automotive, culinary arts, computer science, and architecture. And as you can see, you have high school courses that line up with community college courses, and this is only the first semester. If you turn the page, we provided you with a couple of examples of the comprehensiveness of these programs. And the expert really for developing these programs is Charlene Grove, our career and technical education coordinator over there, and she can tell you a lot more about them than I can. And she helped support a lot of the documents and the information that you have before you. So this is a program of study for fire science, and you can see how the secondary program and secondary courses are laid out. next to the year 13 and 14, and those are the community college courses. And on the far right-hand side of the sheet, you see that the occupations or the career opportunities and pathways that are available for the student. So a program of study is something that's very well articulated, organized to meet the needs of the students, to help them develop skills that will allow them to move on to a community college program, and they're very much aligned with industry skills and occupations. So students that participate in these programs have a clear understanding of what it takes, the courses that they need to take, both academic courses and CTE courses, and what that translates to at the community college level. So I just wanted to give you this as a point of reference, so when we talk about programs of study, you have an example to look at. Okay? So current programs in the school district, we have 30 CTE programs of study aligned to rigorous state standards that provide students industry credentials, as I mentioned earlier, and those are available in EMT, automotive, nursing, and cabinet making. And we're currently developing industry credential opportunities in culinary arts, cosmetology, construction, renewable energy, and education/teaching. So we basically look at what the industry requires for certification, and we incorporate those standards into these classes and programs so students exit the program prepared to take a test to be licensed or get into a community college program and continue training and licensure.
So can I
Again-
ask a quick question, Salam?
Yeah.
On the ones where we are currently doing a premier CTE program, and you say college credit in high school, are most of those through Chemeketa then?
We articulate programs with Chemeketa Community College, Len Vinton Community College, PCC, Rogue, right, Charlene? Rogue Community College, and Western Oregon
Okay.
University.
All right.
The the programs of study, because those fall under the Perkins funding stream,
Right.
are actually with Chemeketa primarily.
Okay.
So not all programs are premier programs. We would love for all programs to become premier programs, but that is a significant investment in time and energy and resources that we may not currently have. But our programs are quality programs that provide opportunities for students to learn as much as they possibly can about that career pathway and put them on a trajectory to get certification and to be prepared to enter an entry-level job.
Thanks.
Jill has a question.
Paul?
Well, Nancy was first.
Nancy?
Is there any effort made at the middle school level to discuss with students what the CTE options are and where they should go to high school based on their interest? And do we give in district transfers for kids from 8th grade to 9th grade to be at the school where their interest lies?
Yes, yes. Great question, and it's really important to begin all of this at the middle school level in terms of exposure, exploration, and learning as much as possible about different career pathways and options. But most importantly, there's a lot of coordination between the high schools and their feeder middle schools to help the students understand and learn about the options and opportunities that are available to them. We have some CTE programs at the middle school level, not as much as we used to, because as we went through the budget cuts, we had to eliminate many, unfortunately. We also had to make some cuts at the high school level, I would say. The 30 programs that we have are really the top-notch, highest quality programs we have in the district. Through the budget cutting process, we realized that you cannot have similar programs in all schools. So you can't really we couldn't afford to have an automotive program in every high school. So the premier program designation came into play to say this is the highest quality program we could possibly have, and we want to make it available to every student in the Salem-Keizer School District. Students would apply on an IDP to go from their home high school to participate in this program. And I want to underscore the term program because it's a sequence of courses. It's a series of courses and not one or two courses that students, take and then they find themselves sort of at a loss as to what to pursue further at that school. So we really wanted to invest in programs. So there is a sequence of courses that students take. We provided the option to students to transfer from their home high school to the different programs that are available. Quite frankly, it's a challenge to get students to leave their home high school and go to another school. They formed relationship, their identity is based on their home high school, They want to graduate with their friends and their peers. But we do have some that have taken advantage of that. And we've had some students tell us, if I had known that there is such a fabulous nursing program at McKay, I would have gone there. So we're doing as much as we can to promote and disseminate this information. It would be great to have similar programs in every school so students can access those right at their home high school, but that's challenging given the financial climate that we're in. And that's going to actually be a good thing to explore when Chuck presents his concepts to you in terms of how we facilitate access and how we facilitate those opportunities.
Can I just follow up with one question along that same line? So at this point, are those courses grouped in such a way that students could maintain their association with their high school, go to their high school for the first half of the day, and then go in the other half of the day, either go first or go, flip them, so that students could maintain that connection to their own high school?
Right. The model that we currently have does not allow for that, and it does not really facilitate that kind of relationship. We talked about that, but I think, and Kelly was part of that conversation, and Charlene, I believe, the logistics of that and managing the various aspects of it in terms of enrollment, in terms of credits, and transportation became extremely challenging. Again, when we talk about a central location where students can go, perhaps be affiliated with their home high school and that facility may help address that issue. But we do recognize that students that start at Sprague want to stay at Sprague. The students that start at West want to stay at West. So we've created the opportunity because we didn't really want to deny students that, but not many have taken advantage of it. But I can tell you that the programs at the home high schools are full, well attended, and there's room to grow them and to expand their capacity.
Paul?
I worked with 2+2 programs in the 80s. I'm curious about the +2.
Yeah.
So which programs are the premier plus? And then which is the institution that they're connected to?
Yeah. Nursing would be the best example that I can
Well,
give
your list, nursing and
Right,
education,
right.
I would guess.
Architecture would also be a possibility.
Right.
Computer science and these programs of studies.
Right.
So I think a lot of it depends on how broad the pathway is. So a student can actually enroll, let's say, in an automotive technology program. They can get a one-year certificate for going to Shemekia. They can get a 2-year certificate. They can actually complete that program and get an Associate of Arts degree or
Right.
an Associate of Applied Science if the focus is on
Right.
career technical education.
Right.
Is it Concordia? I think maybe Concordia. One of the colleges in the Portland area currently offers a baccalaureate degree in an applied business. It's called, it's a non-traditional baccalaureate degree. So you can have an Associate of Applied Science
Okay.
that has been traditionally associated with technical and trades occupations and career pathways, and use that to pursue a baccalaureate degree.
Okay.
That would be accepted in the business community. But many of those areas allow a student to continue their education if they wanted to get into the medical field in a broad sense, if they wanted to get into culinary arts beyond the narrow focus of being a chef. They're not going to get into the business aspect of it. So lots of opportunities exist, and our job is to educate the students and provide them as much information as we possibly can relative to the pathway. So we're not talking about specific occupations. We may start with specific occupations, but it's really about pathways. It's about getting the credentials that move them to that next step in their life and education and careers. Does that answer the question, Paul?
Yeah,
Trying to give you
it
some
gets
broad,
me close, so I'm
perspective.
good.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead.
Continue. All right. So we do have 30 programs that we're very proud of and provide great opportunities for our students, and lots of dedicated teachers that support those programs. We have new programs under development, EMT and fire protection at West, residential construction at McKay and South, restaurant management at North and McNary. So you may be asking yourself, well, if we're tight on resources, how are we actually creating new programs? Those are grant-funded programs. So the EMT Fire Science program at West Salem High School is a redirecting of resources at the school. When we have a teacher that retired, for example, it was an opportunity to look at bringing in new opportunities and new programs that students were interested in. And also, these are high-wage, high-demand careers, so that's one of the things that we look at. The residential construction and restaurant management programs are funded through our CTE revitalization grant, the $1 million that we just received from the state. So these are all funded through grant dollars, federal and state, okay? So, so these are new ones that are currently under development, and these are potential future programs, and we came up with this list through a survey of our students. Charlene did a survey 3 years ago that asked students, what are you interested in? What would you like to see at your school? And we usually get a wide range of things that students are interested in. Some are really narrow in focus, some are very broad, but this gives you an idea of some of the things that students are interested in. So, if resources become available, we could actually look at adding courses in these areas to existing programs, or actually creating programs. But there are lots of challenges associated with that in terms of adequate funding to support the startup of the program, the staffing, the FTE associated with it, but also the specialization of the teacher that would be required to teach in these areas. So I'm going to give you a couple of handouts now to also orient you to what we currently have in our district. So the yellow handout that's coming around Thank you, Mike. So the yellow handout that's coming around shows you a list of all programs in the Salem-Keizer School District. We did an analysis relative to potential expansion. We said if we were to expand these programs, how much staffing will be required? How many students can these programs actually accommodate? What type of facility needs or renovations or even construction would be required? Are there equipment requirements? We also look at labor market projections in Marion County and regionally. So the labor market projections for 2010-20 are listed here to show that there are a number of openings. And again, we always ask ourselves, is this a high-wage, high-demand occupation? Is it a career pathway? And we always consider that before we develop any program. So this gives you a list of existing programs, and it also lists the potential new programs for you to review, okay? I'm going to give you another sheet, so you may ask yourself, and I apologize for giving you so much information, but it's really good stuff.
What are we going to ask ourselves?
For this one?
Yeah.
I'll tell you in a second. So when we look at these potential future programs, Charlene, our expert on the topic, always does an analysis about the viability of that program. So true students tell us this is what they're interested in. We do some studies, we do analysis, we gather a lot of data and information. So we know that this program is going to be a viable program, it's going to be well-attended, students will have great experiences in it, and it's sustainable. That's the main thing. We want to make sure these are sustainable programs. So this gives you a quick summary of the areas that we look at. We look at this program as a program of study. We look at the different career pathways. We look at facility needs, equipment needs, staffing needs, supply and instructional materials, education and community partners that can participate in this process. So we look at things very thoughtfully and holistically before we move in any of these directions. Okay? And the labor market information that's in the box on the right-hand side, that comes from the Bureau of Labor and Industries and the Oregon Labor Department. Okay? All right. Do you have any questions about this before I move on to the partnership phase?
Nancy?
I'm always curious when things are grant funded. It seems like in the past, at least as my kids were coming up to South always had this construction
Yes.
program, and they built a house every year, at least that was the rumor in the community. And
They did, yeah.
and then the teacher retired, and then it was gone. And that, what about this will be different that assures that maybe we use the grant money to do startup for it, but we are figuring a way to make sure it's sustainable and not just dependent on a teacher who inevitably will retire at some point?
Right, right. That's really a great question, and I think that's the challenge that's before the board relative to this concept. As we invest in these programs, whether through grant dollars or general fund dollars, or partnership dollars, the district takes on the responsibility of maintaining them and sustaining them over time. The investments for the CTE revitalization grant has been primarily in equipment. So the equipment cost could be a one-time cost, and it's something that we have to upgrade, but it's not going to be as much every time we upgrade it, depending on the life of the equipment. The biggest investment will be in staffing, and we have to look at our existing resources. We potentially could look at redirecting resources. I think I'd like to suggest, Nancy, that we bring your question back to the end
Okay.
when we put that question to you ourselves in terms of your direction to us relative to any potential future investments, because those are truly the essential questions. These are great opportunities. We welcomed having $1 million from the state to support our CTE programs, but ultimately, the district has to maintain those programs and to continue to support them. So we'll come back to that if that's okay. Okay, all right. So I want to reference the letter from Mountain West, and conceptually, the proposal from Chuck and Mountain West talked about a CTE opportunity that would develop in phases. Okay, so this slide really moves us into the partnership conversation, and I will turn it over to Chuck here in just a few minutes. The initial thinking is or was, and still, is to build a 20,000 square foot facility for construction cluster and manufacturing engineering cluster programs to begin in the fall of 2015. That was the concept that was shared with the board. You'll see us say cluster because it's not just a house build. So it's about the construction aspect of the program, but it's also about the design and the engineering and all aspects of the industry. So students learn everything from beginning to end. And the same is true for manufacturing. It's not just a narrowly defined programmatic area like welding, for example. It's really, it spans the gamut of what manufacturing is, leading to engineering. And this is really a good example for your question earlier, Paul, relative to a 2+2+2. Okay. The conversation has been relative to this facility focused on providing access to students in grades 11 and 12. So those students would potentially can leave their home high school for a portion of the day and participate in that program. We would initially enroll up to 200 students through an application-based process because we wanted to make sure that there is quality and readiness to participate in these programs. And that alongside this concept, we would continue to support existing programs, and that's where the yellow sheet comes in really handy. So we're considering a 20,000 square foot facility for these two programs, but yet we'll continue to raise funds and do everything we can to support our existing programs. Okay, so that would be phase one. Chuck, do you agree?
Yes.
And how long is phase one, Salam? You said it starts in
Fall of
2015.
It's slated to start to open with 200 students by fall of 2015. So it's for the 2015-16 school year.
Okay.
I think, the other thing I'd like to point out is it says build a 20,000 square foot CTE facility, and I think one of the things that we'll be talking about a little bit is the potential to not just build a 20,000 square foot CTE facility, but a bigger CTE campus that over years would be become more of a CTE campus. To build a 20,000 square foot facility and then turn around and do a CTE campus doesn't make a lot of sense. So we're kind of looking at.
That would, so what you're saying is that the 20,000 square foot facility would be the beginning of a campus? Is
Yes.
that what you
Yeah.
were?
Potentially.
What's 20,000 square feet? Like, is this building 20,000 square feet?
If you can picture a gymnasium, that's 10,000 square feet.
Oh, two
Okay.
gymnasiums,
Two
thank you.
gymnasiums. Yeah.
So that's really phase two. What Chuck is referring to is phase two. And the letter was not very explicit in terms of what that expansion potentially would look like. The letter did say, construct a 20,000 square foot facility for construction and management programs by fall of 2015, phase one for the CTE school. So I would interpret that to say that there is a phase two and beyond. I didn't want to say a phase two and a phase three, and phase two could be the end, I don't know. So phase two and beyond, so this would expand the facility to include additional programs. So if we were to start with 20,000 square feet for two programs, and you're looking to add programs, so you need to be able to expand the facility, either add buildings or, well, let's just say that the ideal way is by adding buildings, okay? And again, we want to continue to support CTE programs throughout this whole process. Now, beyond phase two, and it could be incorporated in this notion of a CTE school that could serve students in grades 9 through 12, okay? And this would be a partnership with Mountain West CTE Institute, business and industry partners, and colleges and universities. And Chuck, when I shift it over to you, you'll be able to talk about the partnership and the community support there. This school would potentially enroll up to 800 students from the Salem-Keizer School District, and it would provide access to partners for training. So business and community partners can use this facility. Chemeketa Community College can use this facility potentially to train students in the off hours. It could be in the afternoons, in the evenings. Trade and apprenticeship communities could use the facility to do training on the weekends. So although it will be a partnership facility, it would be accessible to other community members and organizations. So we're going to come back to more details relative to this slide because, Paul, I believe you asked for some specific cost estimates, and we have those for you, but we'll go through those at the end. So at this time, now we've kind of painted a vision for you. I'm going to turn it over to Chuck to talk about what this potentially would look like. Okay?
Okay.
And then we can talk about cost and other details. Do you want to?
I'll let you man the switch, okay?
All right.
Thanks. Thank you,
Okay.
Salam. Basically, just as a reminder, Mountain West Career Technical Institute has been formed basically to create a public-private partnership to provide high-quality, high-impact educational opportunities for the Salem-Keizer region. I think Salam did a great job talking about what career technical education programs are, that they provide a relevant, real-world technical programs that prepare students for successful living, good wage careers, prepares them for further education, training, and citizenship in Oregon's dynamic workforce. So that's kind of the overall mission of what we've been trying to accomplish and get started. But, really, Larry Tokarski is, mainly the driving force behind this. And Larry kind of got this urge to do something for workforce development and giving kids hope by observing a teacher at North Salem, Dean Matson's cabinet-making class. I see Dean over there. And it's become basically a world-class program, and Dean's been recognized nationally for the great job he does. And what inspired Larry is that these kids come in and they take that class and they go through the program with Dean, and when they're done, they're out getting great jobs in Olympia and all over the country, coming out of there with a real chance to be ready to enter the workforce after they leave high school or to continue on at Chemeketa or other programs. And his vision is why not do more? And so that's kind of what we're talking about here. We really believe that a career technical high school would benefit kids and give them hope, but it also would be a real shot in the arm for our economy locally by producing a well-trained workforce. It would maybe attract new businesses here that had a population of kids coming out of high school that would go right into the workforce or, again, go on to higher education. So while it really does focus on a lot of CTE programs, there's tremendous benefit for the Salem-Keizer community in general, we believe. I'm not going to go through, again, Salam has handed you information on labor statistics and kind of the needs in our community, but there is a real need. All the time, I've only been doing this for a couple of months now, but as I talk to people in industry and construction and you go through, they are having a hard time finding a workforce, well-trained individuals to meet their needs. So there is a definite need, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that. But again, as we looked at kind of construction, you can see a lot of the construction jobs that are going to be new jobs just in Marion County alone. But I'm going to talk a little bit later about just manufacturing. That I don't know if you realize it, but there's 142,960 manufacturing jobs within 60 miles of Salem. So, you know, that's one of the reasons we kind of started with the construction and manufacturing focuses.
How many did you say? 10,000?
142,000 manufacturing jobs currently in this area. The other thing that's really significant is, even though those are jobs that are currently held, the data really talks about, you know, the baby boomers retiring in the next 4 or 5 years, and who's going to be filling those 142,000 positions over the years. Another statistic I heard is that 75% of PGE's linemen are going to be retiring in the next 5 years. And so with the baby boomers moving on to retirement, it is going to really open it up a real huge need in our community. And those communities that have the workforce, that have the trained workers, are going to be the ones that are going to do better in this economy because of that pipeline. I've been talking to a lot of community support, and we have a lot of support going on. These are some of the organizations I've talked to. I basically met with representatives from all of these groups last week, and gave them a little bit of a presentation of the vision of a CTE high school in this community, and kind of their response was, this could be a real game changer for Oregon, and that the impetus would change the economic trajectory for Salem-Keizer in the Mid-Willamette Valley. They felt that we could become a real focus for Oregon's workforce. They pointed out that Salem and Keizer, and this is kind of a consensus of a lot of the people who are at that meeting, suffers from an identity crisis. We're the city between Portland and Eugene, and this will be a game changer, that hopefully we can have something special here that will be unique, that doesn't maybe exist in other communities. And both Paula and Salam were there, and at some point, I don't know if they want to expound on that meeting, but they were both there too. Yeah.
Can you tell us, Inspire Foundation, is that with Salem Chamber?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Kathy Moore is the executive director of that, and she does an awful lot of workforce development with youth through Leadership Youth and other programs too, so, okay. I use this visual to point out to people that I'm talking to about kind of what it takes to get a career technical education high school going. It's more than just Mountain West investment. If you look at all of those different circles, those are components that need to come together to make this dream a reality. First of all, through Larry, you know, we've got some leadership, and I'm looking at that top bubble right now. We've got leadership in place. We would like to go out and identify, possess a facility and do the necessary renovation. We'd like to go out to the community to equip that facility. We'd like to utilize our resources to bring financial resources to the district that they don't currently have, that would be a new source of revenue for programs like this. And then kind of be the collaborative to kind of pull this together so that you know, we can make this a reality. You can see the bubble on the left with the Salem-Keizer schools. This would primarily be their role, the operations of the facility. We'd try to provide the facility, the equipment, et cetera, and basically let the Salem-Keizer School District use it for free. And they would be in charge of the operations, startup resource and oversight. The teachers and staff, the people who know best how to work with our young people, would be the responsibility of the school district. They do the curriculum and assessment, risk management, compliance, accreditations, do the recruiting for student enrollment to get the students in there, and also be responsible for transportation, like Salam was talking about, getting kids from their home high school to this facility. Just a quick word on that. When I talk to some of the high school principals about CTE and programs, I'll use automotive as an example. I was talking to the principal at South Salem, he said that there's a lot of kids at South that really would benefit from that great automotive program that they've got at Sprague. But he can't get them to go there because South is their school, and they're not really going to take advantage of it. But I think that there's a real consensus that if there was a neutral spot, a central location, a CTE campus, you'd find that kids would be a lot more motivated to attend a school like that rather than to leave their current school and all of those traditions and things behind.
So the campus that you're talking about in phase 2 and beyond is the kind of campus that kids would stay at their primary high school and would go for their CTE portion.
Do you want to respond to that, Salam?
Yeah, I think, if I may, a lot of it depends on program design. So you could still have a central facility for 11th and 12th graders only. So we have two concepts before you. You have one, which is a program model, but it's not located at any particular high school. Independent, separate facility that accommodates 11th and 12th grade students. They can participate in that as half a day, a portion of their day can be at that facility. If we are talking about a CTE school for grades 9 through 12, that changes things dramatically, because if students are expected to go there the entire 4 years, then it would look like a comprehensive high school, but with an emphasis on career and technical education. So you would still have to offer the academics and the support structures that you would normally have in a regular high school. So 9-12 becomes high school, 11-12 becomes a program, not located at any particular high school, separate central facility that students go to. Does that answer the question?
It does.
The lower bubble, higher education, institutes, and industry employers, it's important to have them at the table just because of some of the issues that are listed below, from apprenticeships to industry certificates, mentoring teachers and students, secondary degrees and certifications. It's important for whatever the Salem-Keizer schools do as far as programmatically, that it ties in with the industry, so that when kids are getting their completion of their high school degree, they've got a certificate that they can take to an industry or an employer that verifies that they do have the skills necessary to do that job. So I've heard over and over again, if industry is not at the table, this isn't going to work. And so they're a very important component of this because, again, we want to prepare kids for careers, and they're an important partner to have at the table. The bubble on the right, the community and business partners, best can explain that by saying we need, for example, engineering and manufacturing. We need to have companies like Garmin at the table. We need, under construction, these are just examples. They're not here yet, but just to point out to you that these are partnerships that we need to have to make this important. But for example, with the construction and construction technology, that's where you have the Salem Construction Alliance and others come in. Automotive technology, that's the dealerships in town, and making sure that that they're supportive of giving us both resources and expertise to make the courses meaningful, but also to provide us with the resources that we need to give the kids the kind of training that they need. Health occupations, you'd really want a partnership with Salem Health, agribusiness, NORPAC, Maduri Foods, Food Share, a variety of them. So, it's more than just Truett Brothers. Thank you. Rick, what did you think of that?
Well, because I work for Truett Family
Yeah,
Foods.
I figured, yeah.
It's a different company.
So, all I wanted to point out with this particular slide was that it's more than just Mountain West providing a facility. It's more than the school district just providing the teachers and the operations. That this has got to be a community effort, something that really the whole community gets behind. And whatever I can do to be a collaborator or a connection point for any of those to bring together, I think it just makes the whole concept stronger. I've had the opportunity to really see some incredible, and in fact, in a way, you would be well served if you had the opportunity to see some CTE facilities in both in our community, but also I had an opportunity to go to Las Vegas and saw some incredible CTE programs. And these are just some of the, to give you a feel for some of the schools that I've had a chance to take a look at. These kids that are coming out of these programs have just got tremendous advantages. Some of them we can just kind of go through here, but I've visited 2 CET schools in Las Vegas, been to the Center for Advanced Learning in Portland. We've got the art, I've been to what they call ACE Academy, which is Architecture, Construction, and Engineering in Gresham. I've been to Sabin in Clackamas School District, and I've been to the Clackamas Academic of Industrial Sciences. And, you know, basically they are really doing a great job of what we're talking about with CT education, and there are some good examples out there. And I think it's really kind of where education has been going for a long time, and it's been part of our vision as the Salem-Keizer School District for quite some time, too. Just go ahead and keep through there. Yeah. You know, just, you know,
Is that health occupation
Yeah.
classroom?
So, there's a couple of paths that you can take to a CTE school. And one is a bond measure, and the other is this public-private partnership that we're talking about. And you might recall that back when we were putting together the bond campaign that was $242 million that provided us with West Salem and 3 elementary schools and a great deal of renovation to our facilities, and it's just been a real boon to our economy. The very next item on that list that didn't make the list was basically a CTE facility, as I recall. And it was a $78 million new high school in this community. And it was ranked very high in the polling that was done for the campaign, but at the end of the day, the district felt that we could only go to $242 million, not because of a lack of interest in that particular program, but basically it was an economic reality that to pass the bond, that it needed to be set at that $242 million level. Still would have had the cost to the district to start up the staffing and operations, which Salam will be talking about. You go through a bond election and campaign costs. I can't remember exactly how much money that it cost us to promote that campaign and make it happen. And you're probably talking about waiting till the year 2016 or 17 to pass another bond measure, and then it's going to take some time to build if it's successful. With the public-private partnership that we're talking about, again, our intention is to find a facility, build a facility, renovate it, provide the equipment, and the district would have the cost to start up staffing operations, et cetera. So those are kind of what we're looking at, I think, as far as if we're going to get to that level and have that kind of facility.
Rick?
Those are 2 ways to get there.
On the left side of the chart, Chuck, on the bond election and campaign costs, I just want to make sure if the public's watching, they understand that that was all citizen money, those costs, and the money that drove the campaign was not school district money. So I don't want anybody to have the impression that school district money drove the campaign. Okay,
Good point.
thanks.
Good point. Okay. So I've got basically some what-ifs, you know, what could this look like? And I don't want anybody to think that this is a done deal by any means, but we've kind of looked a little visually at what we could provide. Basically, the CTE school that didn't make the bond measure, I believe, was about 170,000 square foot facility. And so if we're looking at something like that, that building there would be approximately 160,000. We have many options of what one could look like, and this is just one option, for example, of a potential CTE facility. This is kind of the same building. You can see kind of the potential for bus transportation, and parking would be necessary. Other visuals of the outside of the building. And again, this is, if we were able to acquire a facility this size, this would just give you an idea of potentially what would fit inside of a facility this size.
This is the
This is a 160,000 square foot facility. And again, I don't want people to get hung up on the programs that you see in there or the exact sizes, because this is just only done just to kind of give you a feel for a building that size, what you could house in there. And you can see we've got construction and manufacturing. I hope you can pick up.
I have to tell you, I can't see.
Yeah, I have to tell you, I can't see it either, and it's awful small in your handouts, but if you can hear my voice still, this is, for example, all of these are about 10,000 square foot facilities, and you've got agriculture, below it is food processing, then engineering, again, all 10,000 square foot facilities. Across the bottom, you've got forensic science, video game technology, imaging, health services, digital arts, hospitality. Up above, you've got the automotive area, and next to it is a diesel repair, and then the construction and manufacturing. So, again, I'm not saying those are gonna be the programs, I'm not saying they're all gonna be 10,000 square feet, but if we were able to get a facility that size, you can see the kind of programs and things that could be housed in there and what an attractive magnet it could be for kids and a way to really build a strong workforce for our community. And again, back to, there's another better example of it. Back to the conversation at the beginning, if we started with construction and manufacturing in the fall of 2015, and again, I'm not saying we would put them exactly right there because we don't know exactly what this building's gonna look like, but you know, the idea would be is to start with those two programs and then the next year maybe pick another two programs and expand into a facility that way. That would be probably, in my mind, the best way to go, because if we go off and build a 20,000 square foot facility for those two programs and then start adding on to it, it would just be more expensive, but it would also not be as easy to probably to expand as easily. So this is kind of, again, just where we are, and again, this is where Mountain West Career and Technical Institute, kind of what we've done so far. We have been financially supporting existing CTE programs. At least $100,000, I believe, has gone to the cabinet-making CTE program at North. I'm the hired full-time president, hired a development officer to go out and write grants and to help us get the resources and things we need. We've got an architect, as you could see from the drawings, on board to help us, and we're ready to kind of do an appraisal of potential CTE facilities and things that we might be looking at. Our goal over the next 18 months, if we get the go-ahead to continue to go from the board and the district, would be to raise the funds necessary to purchase facility and install state-of-the-art equipment, and continue to lead this collaboration of bringing the community and industry and the district together to provide a facility that we as a school district can be really proud of and meet the needs of our kids. So that's kind of what Mountain West has committed to this process. So, Salam, I'll turn it back to you if you want to go over the next slides.
Thank you, Chuck. So just to frame the next two slides, if you will, we're talking about two potential program designs here. If you set the facility aside, and let's just look at the programmatic needs within a facility, which would really be the district's obligation to supporting programs and students in the facility, we break it up into two areas, an 11-12 program or a 9-12 program, okay? So the next two slides break that down for you, and I have a sheet that gives you a lot more detail, but let me go over that very quickly with you. So as a district, in order to support these programs, we have to consider the staffing requirements, and that means salaries and benefits. We have to consider the instructional materials, curriculum development and equipment, and other support resources like a CAD lab if you have manufacturing and construction as a startup programs. We have to consider classroom and office supplies, so we treated this as a startup because it's a new facility. We don't have a lot of classroom supplies like desks and staplers and paper, et cetera. So we treated it as a new facility. The operating and building facility maintenance, that's paying for the lights and the water and facility maintenance, et cetera. And that's a very, very conservative estimate. It's really a rough estimate. And transportation costs to transport students from their home high school to this facility if it's a program that serves primarily 11th and 12th graders. So we came up with these costs, and I will say that some of them are startup one-time costs, and I would say all of them have some ongoing costs nonetheless. Because your startup cost may be $600,000 for classroom and office supplies, but your ongoing cost may be a portion of that. It could be $200,000. I can't give you that estimate, that figure now. So just as a caveat, I would like to emphasize that these are projections and these are estimates. These are not, locked in numbers. I also want to point your attention to Mountain West CTI offer to provide funding for equipment and furnishings for the facilities, which will help offset a lot of these costs. So for the 11-12 program, for the grades 11-12 program, we're estimating a $2,362,270 investment. If Mountain West were to provide support for equipment and furnishings, let's say in the amount of $500,000 to $600,000, that can bring the cost down. If the board wants to consider moving programs that are currently in our high schools into this facility, that could also reduce the cost dramatically, but I would also suggest that we have to consider what we put in place of these programs, because the goal here is to expand opportunities and not reduce options for students.
So, Salam,
Yes, sir.
the $2.3 million figure that you've got a total of estimated startup cost, that includes a $650,000, I see by the double asterisks.
Yes, yep.
So really, it's like, knowing these are guesstimates, you're looking at 1.7, a little over 1.7 from the
That is
school
correct.
district.
That's
Okay.
correct. And that is to support 2 programs for 11th and 12th grade students, starting with 200. If the number is going to grow from there on, you would have to consider the staffing needs and other support systems that would have to be put in place as well.
And how many FTE is this?
So I'm going to give you another handout.
And I see what you have on the yellow sheet, that's why I'm curious.
Yeah. This would be different from what we have on the yellow sheet because we treated it as a startup.
Okay, and then I have a question for Mr. Parshall as well.
So I have one question that won't play into that.
Sure.
Is this assuming 160,000 square foot facility or not? I mean,
Well,
what,
that's why I made my comments. I preferenced the estimates by saying this does not pertains, well, it does assume a facility of some kind.
okay,
Okay?
That's fine.
So I wanted to focus our conversation on program because this is essentially the district's obligation. This is the district's responsibility, is staffing and supporting and maintaining the program. We have to consider the facility as part of this conversation, and that's something we're going to come back to. And the size of the facility will require
different
different
investment?
investments
Right.
and different cost estimates as well.
Okay.
Right? So, that's why I really want us to focus more specifically on what the district would be committing to as part of this private-public partnership, and not to diminish the generosity of Mountain West CPI, especially the contribution to equipment and furnishings that will help us get it up and running. But I think it's important for the board to understand that. Let me take you to the next slide, if I may. Essentially the same categories, but if we're looking at a 9-12
So that should be grades 9, 12 up there.
which one?
Yeah, the header.
This phase 1, grades 11 and 12.
For
but you
800
mean
students.
So that
nine-
should say
Oh,
9, 12.
Phase 2.
And that should be phase 2?
Yep.
Okay.
Phase 2.
Okay.
Sorry about
I kind of figured that, but that's okay.
Well, we've adjusted those slides so many times that.
I know how it
numbers
goes when
escape
you're putting a
us.
PowerPoint
Yes.
together, so that's
it
fine.
should be phase 2, grades 9, 12. My apologies.
That's okay.
So phase 2, grades 9, 12. And I have another sheet with estimates that shows you the number of FTE required, and you see a big jump in FTE because now we're talking about a school, right? Thank you, Mike. Sorry. Back and forth. So phase 2 is essentially the equivalent of a comprehensive high school, and that would require additional support, such as counseling, administration, office support, etc. Now, what I would like to also point out relative to the cost that's projected for phase 2, grades 9 through 12, is that this amount is specific to new programs. So every time you add a new program, it's reasonable to estimate anywhere from $250,000 to $300,000 in terms of equipment costs.
How much was that again, Salam?
I would say, on average, about $250,000 to $300,000 per new program, and that is to equip the program and hire a qualified licensed teacher to deliver the curriculum. And that's a conservative estimate because those are going to vary. Some programs are going to be a lot more
Sure.
expensive than others, but we wanted to give you a rough estimate so that informs your thinking as you give us direction from here on.
Paul?
Okay?
My question for Ken was, have you looked at staffing this? Can you find people with the right licenses to do all this?
Well, as Salam shared earlier, that's a great question. Many of these programs, staff members would go through a professional process for licensure. There's an alternative path to licensure, so they get industrial or career experience credit, so.
It's called the structure appraisal process, and it's an alternative pathway, as Ken said.
I know what it is. I'm just asking if we've looked at finding, are these people available that we could actually start in 2015?
It's a good question.
It's
mean-
really a good question. We have been successful in getting really highly talented and skilled individuals into education.
Okay.
And Charlene has casted a really wide net in terms of identifying and attracting people. But that is definitely one of the challenges associated with these programs.
But I'd point out, too, that the challenge would be great if we were going to do 16 programs all at the same time, but when you're starting with 2, construction and manufacturing, and you're a year and a half out, it gives you time to cast that net, and then if the decision's made to add health sciences and agribusiness the next year, then you've got time to be looking
What's
at
the role of the president under these two scenarios? Since I see there's also an administrator hired. So do we have 2 chiefs, or do we have 1 chief and?
Oh,
I don't know, I'm just asking, because
Yeah,
I know that when it said you'd hired an administrator, president, I didn't know what that meant.
That's me.
I know who, I don't know
Right.
what.
That's the work with the Mountain West, totally separate.
Okay.
The administrator, I think, on Salam's sheet is the building principal. Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure,
Yeah.
because
Yeah. It would not be me.
I wasn't questioning that you were licensed, I mean, you could fit the role, but.
Okay.
So can I dovetail with Paul's last question? And Ken, this may be for you, but it may be for all 3 of you. If we're looking at doing a construction manufacturing one, and we don't currently, I don't see that in our programs of study that you gave us earlier, is that correct?
Right.
Okay. Have we talked, and it's a follow-up to Paul's really more than anything else, have we talked to industry about their willingness to have folks step forward and go to TSPC for that licensure, you know, where they've got to look at their background, they got to look at how long they've been in the industry, and then they got to look at the program, and then they've got to take, you know, some pedagogy classes on how to provide instruction. Are there folks within the Willamette Valley area that are willing to step up to the plate and make that type of commitment? Because it's not an easy thing to do. I mean, it can be done, don't get me wrong, I've seen it done a lot, but, you know, they got to audit the program and a variety of things. Or have you had that conversation, Chuck, when you've reached out, or Salam, or maybe your staff has that answer?
Charlene's our really resident expert in that area, and she's worked with Human Resources and TSPC to help
So Charlene, can you answer the question in terms of individuals that we would be able to tap to?
I guess, is there just an interest out there from folks? You need to come up to the mic. You got to come all the way to the mic to say yes or no.
Well, thank you for that question. Yes, I would say there are individuals in industry that would be capable and willing to take those jobs.
Okay. Thanks.
One of the,
Licensure process is one that we use as a-
Right, through TSBC. Right, I understand that.
that, if I may say, I think 2 of our CTE teachers in the room came from industry. Right?
So when we as a board have this conversation, are we having a conversation about all of it? Or are we having a conversation about phase 1? What is it that you're asking from
So
us?
if I may use that as a segue for our next slide. So we have some questions that help facilitate this dialogue amongst board members. And we wanted to use this as an opportunity to inform your thinking, to give you as much information as possible to help us in terms of next steps and what directions you'd like us to take here. And we understand that this is an evolving process, so you're not making any final decisions today or committing to anything specific, condition, or comfortable with. But you've given us direction to come back to you in 6 weeks or 8 weeks and give you additional information if you would like. So the first question is, what questions does the board have based on tonight's presentation? And I think we can start with yours, Nancy, that would be great. So we have 2 options before you. And a phase 1 focusing on 2 programs, 11, 12. And you grow that into potentially a CTE school. But where those programs get housed is really the essence of that question. So do we start with a 20,000 square foot facility that gets secured by Mountain West, or it gets built, and then you expand it? Or do we start with the vision that Chuck shared, which is there potentially could be a facility that can house 10 programs? And Mountain West would secure that facility. We would start with construction and manufacturing, then grow it to other areas, and have that facility potentially become a 9-12 CTE school for the Salem-Keizer School District.
My question about the 9-12 school is it seems like when there's such a specialized need in classrooms for these programs, that it seems foolish to put English classes in this building, and that it would increase our capacity if we ran 2 full programs, one in the morning and one in the afternoon, and that kids had those classes that need completely unspecialized classrooms, which we already own in their own school, and got a dual diploma from both schools or something, but that we're not spending money building English and math classrooms when the need in these programs is for such really specialized classrooms. So that's, I am totally about expanding it and, looking not at the short run, but looking at the long run. I'm just not sold on the idea that we should have kids not do any coursework in their original high schools because of what I already said.
But Salam, if I read it properly, or at least the cost estimates properly, that was what you were going to do. You were going to transport students to this program just for the CTE side of it?
It depends. I think you both make a really good point. A lot of it depends on the type of program design we end up with. So you could have a CTE school that serves only 11th and 12th graders in highly specialized areas. So students complete all of their academic requirements at their own high school, and they go to the school to take advanced manufacturing/engineering or advanced construction technology, et cetera. So it's still a separate facility. It has cost associated with it, but you don't have all of the support functions that you would have at a normal high school. Counseling,
Right.
and other office, you know,
Right.
you need to have some office support, but not the spectrum of support that you have at a regular high school. So if you can picture this as a facility, the question is what types of programs do you want to put in that facility? Do you want it to be a 9-12, so it becomes essentially a CTE high school? Or do you prefer to have it be a program school for 11th and 12th grade?
When I looked at what you had shown us about some of the course, like there was something in here I thought I saw on one of these pages. I can't remember what color it was though, but it had an automotive program, and there were some courses that were automotive specific for ninth graders.
Right, the program study on the white sheet.
Was quite, yeah. Here, I can't find a white sheet. But anyway, so when I say what I said about not teaching classes, I'm not necessarily saying I think it should just be an 11-12, but that you would increase your capacity if you did a 9-12 program. You, with that half-day thing, because you wouldn't be duplicating.
Right, yeah. Thank you for the clarification. You're describing a model that currently exists in the North Clackamas School District, where students in all grades
Same skills.
CTE programs off-site. So I believe the North Clackamas School District has 50, Chuck and I visited that program. Kelly is very familiar with that program because he used to work in the North Clackamas School District. So they converted the middle school, and then they have a separate facility that is their CTE facility, the Save and Shelter Skill Center. Out of the 50, let's say 5,200 students that they have, I believe 3,400 of them on a daily basis participate in a CTE program offsite. Now, buses run all day long. So the buses are picking up kids from the schools, taking them to the CTE center, they take their courses over a 2-hour period or so, and then they're bused back to their home high school. And that's a model that works in a lot of different places. So what you're saying, Nancy, is that it is a CTE school, it's a 4-year program, but only offers the CTE component of a student's program of study. The academic areas are provided at the home high school, but students go there to take the automotive and the construction and the nursing and
The kinds of things you need
Right.
very specialized classrooms for.
yeah.
But, and I'd like to see what the data shows us about the cost involved in doing it both ways. You know, is it cheaper to build an English classroom in this building than to run buses? You know, or to build the classroom, pay the teacher, you know, all of the aspects involved in providing non-CTE classes in this high school. That's why I wondered what you're asking us for in terms of moving forward. I just have way too many questions about exact details about how the phase 2, the bigger program. I think we need it. I think we need to have more programs. I'm just not sure we should teach English there.
What we're looking
Or
for is
math or
direction
social
from
studies.
you along what you just suggested. If you want us to bring back some data that shows, we could do some kind of a mock-up scenario where it's a 9-12 school and students go from all 6 high schools to take CTE classes there that's designed to accommodate grades 9 through 12 compared to a different configuration. We can run some mock-up, kind of configurations and do the best we can to get at those numbers. And we just need to know if that's what you want us to do as a board. And that's the kind of direction we need from you.
Okay, before we get there, are there any other questions from board members? Jeff?
Yes.
I was hoping to have Dean Matson share with us his opinion on it, but I think we just lost him. So,
Okay. Rick?
Yeah.
Sorry, Paul, do you have some too?
On
Yeah.
Okay.
on the contribution from Mountain West, we're talking about two 10,000 square foot sections of a building, or two buildings at 10,000 square feet or whatever. Does that contribution include the cost of the land also? Because I haven't seen any here about the cost of the land. So it'd be
Yeah.
potentially purchase of the land with enough acreage to get to 160,000 square feet of building, but we'll start with two 10,000, if we build from fresh or
Yeah.
brown.
Again, the intention is to provide the facility, and that would include, we're looking at a variety of different things.
Right.
But my response would be yes. I think, the other thing I'd like, a need I have that, is important. Program aside, we can decide what goes into that program, whether it's 9 through 12 or 11, 12 or whatever. Is the concept of a central CTE campus something that the board wants to proceed with? Because it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to proceed with seeking that kind of facility if the board isn't willing to utilize it. And we intend to gift the facility back at some point to the district. We did look at it, would a charter school be the way to go, or a private school or whatever, and felt that this is probably the best way to go for the community and the board. So I'm ready to go out tomorrow and start raising money for this and the equipment and negotiate and find a facility if that's what the board wants, and the decision could be made to go 9 to 12 or 11, 12 or whatever. But that's an overriding question that I guess I have if we're looking at what future direction do we need. I think Salam's got future direction, and I do too, so.
So, Rick, did that take care of yours? Paul?
Two, if you're done.
Oh, I got some other,
Go.
you go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Go ahead,
Okay,
Rick.
You might catch mine.
Yeah, well, since you just brought it up, I am all for a central CTE campus. My question is what we do stick in there, as Nancy was talking about. I don't see teaching English, history, and all those studies. I look at the 800, this is an 800 student school, right, the 9 through 12?
Yes.
I don't see how one math teacher can teach 800 9th through 12th graders all the math they're going to learn during their time there. So, I think it's bigger, staffing is bigger than we have here, and I know a lot of planning's got to get into it. So I like the idea of a CTE campus. I'm all on board on that, okay? Just what we stick in there, yeah.
I may clarify, the one math teacher for this estimate is based on 2 programs.
The two we've been talking about,
Right.
okay.
If you add more programs in there, if you have additional programs, then you have to staff it adequately.
So this is not 800 students then? This isn't,
Well,
are you talking about 800 students in those two
potentially,
programs?
it could be up to 800 students, but the estimates that we gave you is based on 2 programs and students.
Just construction and manufacturing.
Yeah.
Right.
construction.
Going 9 to 12 versus going just 11 and 12. And
Okay.
getting their English and math and social studies there.
But you're right, if you have 800 students in there, you're gonna need more math teachers, more science teachers, more social studies.
Okay.
And more classrooms.
Rick, did you have a follow-up?
No, I'm confused enough now. Go ahead, Paul.
Paul?
I have 2 questions. As I look at the green sheet, how does that fit in with the Common Core? These programs, how do they fit if you're going comprehensive, disregarding those conversations? What do we do with Common Core for those? Because I assume they don't get exemptions.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And Common Core is what we teach in all subject areas,
Right.
essentially.
Yeah.
So no matter where we're teaching science or math or English language arts, et cetera, everything has to be aligned to the Common Core.
Right, which again, this is a follow-up, this isn't my second question. The follow-up goes back to my question earlier to Mr. Parshall about finding the people who would be able to tie it all back in, do all the curriculum work to get everything into Common Core.
So a CTE teacher, and we work actually, Charlene has done a wonderful job working with our CTE teachers to incorporate academics into these programs.
Right.
Our programs of study and our premier programs even allow students to earn academic credit in these programs.
Okay, that's what I want to
Right.
hear, so
Yes,
that's good.
yes. So that's really, the program side of this, quite frankly, is the easy part. We know how to do that.
Okay.
We know how to work with teachers to make sure that they have the appropriate licensure and the training and the professional development necessary to
Okay.
provide them the skills to teach either a specific content area like math or a CTE course or program.
Okay.
So those areas, I appreciate you bringing them up because they're really important, but they are part of our existing programs now.
Okay,
And
that's,
that will translate.
I think I'd heard that answer.
And your
before.
second question, Paul?
Second question is, I really am concerned about the costs 2 years out, 3 years out, 5 years out, because it seems to me, I think we have a commitment to this program. I mean, I think they're wonderful. I've been involved with them since 1975 or earlier. I think they're great, but they get expensive and they get cut. And I would hate to put all this in and then suddenly have it cut again.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know it's cyclical. And so right now, we're in the good part of the cycle. And so I would like to find out what I mean, if we as a board are going to commit that this is a funding project for the length of our terms of office, whatever those may be, then that's different than to say, this sounds great, it's one-time money, and in 2 years from now, we're going to be choosing between music and manufacturing.
Yeah.
I remember the days of the music people storming this room. I can picture the manufacturing people storming this room, but doing something to our cars in the parking lot. So that's the piece that I'm not hearing yet. And that's the piece that's got me concerned.
Okay. Dr. Radich had a comment she wanted to make.
Sure.
I'm wondering, I've sort of, in my mind, narrowed this to basically 3 questions I'd like to ask the board this evening. One of those is what we've articulated. Can you support at least the concept of a CTE facility? So that's one. Secondly, if you did, I heard Rick put some boundaries around potentially the size of it. So one way to say is, if you support that, what's the minimum? And one of those minimums could be a 20,000 square foot facility with capacity to grow to at least this number of square feet, with the understanding that the property and the land would at some point turn to the district. So you could put some qualifiers in terms of giving us some direction, so Chuck kind of knows where to begin looking if you endorse the concept. The other thing I would suggest that you might want to do is direct staff to say, how are you going to pay for the district's part of that? Can you bring us some concepts or ideas about how this would fit in what we anticipate to be a projected budget, for example, for 15-16, as best we know at this time? So you would have some assurity, I think, that you're talking about regarding sustainability.
Do you see why we hired her as an interim
Yeah,
to
no,
focus the discussion on where
yeah.
we gotta go?
I'm just hungry.
So, board, if we could focus on those 3 questions, thank you,
You're
Paul.
welcome.
I think that's very helpful. And I have not heard anybody say no to the idea. I think there's a lot of questions about what ifs and what happens if this doesn't happen and what happens if this happens. But what I'm hearing from the board is consensus around, yeah, we support this type of program going forward. We support this type of CTE facility. The next question is, what is the minimum? I was looking at phase 1 as an opportunity for Chuck and Mountain West to go out and see if they can raise the money to even do phase 1. I mean, if they can raise gangbusters, then it's the what if questions. If they can raise $20 million, go do it. But then the problem falls to us about the ongoing operations. And I'm not hearing any disagreement from around the board of, let's shoot for phase 1 to begin with. If they come back with phase 2 type money, that's a problem we can deal with in the future about what are the what ifs.
Though, Jim, it seems like if there is commitment on this board to have something that is in the future bigger than 20,000 square feet, what Chuck said about starting with that vision and looking for a place
Looking for land that could potentially
That
expand, I think, is
would
what we're
allow
talking
that.
about. Yeah.
seems appropriate, and that that I would like him to hear that I support that.
Okay. So Nancy's comment is to say she supports the idea of looking at a potential larger facility, so locate land that could potentially house that larger facility. And that would be, I mean, that's really incumbent upon you and Mountain West to, one, raise the money and find the land for which we're looking for. Is that what you're
Yes.
saying? Jeff?
Do you already have any land in mind?
We have options that we're looking at, but again, it's very difficult to get real serious about any of it until we get direction.
And I would think he would want to hold back a little bit on telling us those lands for negotiation of land sale purchase price, so.
Yeah.
So I think what we need is direction from the board to move forward with a memorandum of understanding, working with Mountain West, and we would approve that when it's appropriate. But I think what we're looking for still is just a consensus from this board, moving forward with a CTE facility, looking big right now, you know, and seeing what you're able to raise. And then we would deal with the issues of what are we looking at really? From your side, you know, are you able to find the land? Are you able to find the donations and the money put forward to build a bigger facility? And then we need to have the common understanding of, okay, what are we gonna cost? So I think one of the directions, Salam, I think you're hearing from the board is, please go out and find those costs. Drill down on those a little bit more. Yes, Dr. Radich.
Okay, so here's my worry. So Chuck finds $50 million and he builds this huge facility. There is no way we can staff that financially, immediately. We can't. So what you have is this huge facility that the district's going to have to heat and maintain. So I would be really cautious about how you frame, at least initially, what it could look like.
I think what, I didn't raise my hand.
Can I, so are you saying recommend looking at like a phase one initially? Is that what you're recommending?
Well, I'm all for, but I think we should create the capacity to grow,
Okay.
but without boxing the district into something that we cannot manage and that we cannot keep our commitment on. We can manage some things financially, but we don't know what the next biennium's going to bring. So I'd like just to be a little cautious with it. I think it's an exciting concept, and I think we have to begin somewhere, but I'm a little bit worried about the long term.
Rick, and
Thanks
then we'll
for-
go to Nancy. And
Thanks-
Paul, did you have your hand up too? Okay.
Thanks for bringing that up, Paul. I guess what I was envisioning was find the footprint that'll hold the big facility, but build the minimum we're talking about now, because maybe Chuck's organization is able to raise enough to build it all. I wouldn't build it now either, or maybe we'll have to bond in the future to build the rest because they weren't able, but find the footprint to hold the whole facility, because we sure would love that kind of donation, and if we can get a couple of 10,000 square foot buildings to start with. So that's what I was thinking sitting here.
Okay.
And that's what I was thinking.
Okay. And then also, I'm assuming, ask staff to drill down more on cost of looking at that type of program initially. Okay? I'm not seeing anybody say no. Chuck, does that give you direction?
Let me see if I interpret the direction, okay? What I'm hearing is that this is an opportunity to do something great, rather than build a 20,000 square foot facility. That we, that you as a school board would like to see a CTE campus capable of holding the number of strands that you saw here, and that if we can find that kind of facility or that kind of project, that you would accept it as a gift down the road, and that you would find the resources to develop it over the years. And we both know that it's kind of taking a kind of a big gulp, you know, to start going down that road, because we don't know what's going to be happening 10 years from now. But unless we get started on something, we'll
And
have what we've got.
the only caveat I would say to that is that we are looking at like a phase one to begin with and growing to something great if the potential's there, is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Rick?
Yeah, listening to Chuck speak, you know, we're putting Mountain West into a conundrum, though, because if if they were able to find a facility that was 200,000 square feet, an old warehouse in town that could house all this for the future, yeah, we'd have to warm it but they might be able to get that cheaper than building
A brand-new facility.
True.
the 2,000 square foot brand-new facility, so, anyway. And that's kind of what you were just saying there. If you might find an existing facility
Yeah.
that could house the whole thing.
Well, I think the direction from the board's
Yeah.
pretty clear right now, and if it comes to that point, then we may have to reconvene into a different work group to talk about those type of issues.
Yeah.
But I think what I'm hearing from this board is direction to go ahead and move forward with the ideas that we've talked about and have staff work on looking at costs and the issues that Paul brought up around staffing that Ken and our folks are aware of. Does that give you adequate direction?
I believe so. Salon?
I think so.
You think so?
You
I
seem-
guess
you seem
then,
hesitant.
Well, again, the program side of this is really the simple part. So we can project staffing for 2 programs for the next 5 years. Right? The question is, are you thinking 20,000 square feet? So if you're directing staff to worry primarily about the programmatic aspect of this, that's easy. We can project the equipment, the staffing costs, what the upgrade cost will be, what the maintenance of that will be, and we can bring that back to you. Aside from a facility or a footprint that can house a 20,000 plus square foot campus. So we could do that. That's not a problem. It's just a matter of expanding on what we have here. So, I think Mike was
Mike?
I was just going to add to that, that part of the sort of business plan or business case that we could bring back with the detail is a reasonable timeline for expansion, where, maybe it's a program every other year, or maybe it's a program every year, or one every 3 years, and it just depends on how quickly we could move towards the vision, given the assumptions that we'll have to make about future finances, which are always tricky.
I think right now there were grant money put aside in the governor's strategic investments for CTE, which we got some of that. Is that going to continue? And are they going to have the commitment to 40-40-20? Because this really focuses in on that second 40, which we've all known we've got to do something about if that's where this state's going to go. And because of where we found ourselves financially over the last decade, we had to make tough budgetary decisions. And some of those decisions were to not expand our programs and contract some of our CTE programs, and so we need to take a look at that. Nancy?
Well, it seems like one of the benefits of really expanding what it is that we're offering is that the clarity we can have to students throughout the district about what it takes to be successful in those areas. I know of a student who wants to be a mechanic, and he goes to a school that doesn't have a program, and he doesn't see any relevance in anything he's taking because he wants to be a mechanic, versus the reality of what it takes these days to be a mechanic, since it's all computerized, it's all, it's highly technical.
So I think,
And so to help, to have those programs, whether a kid gets into the program or not, it helps everyone in the district understand and communicate well to all the students throughout the district about the rigors involved in every aspect of these kinds of programs.
Can I just add, I just forgot a note that I had put down that I didn't mention, but when you mentioned the automotive part of it, Cattle's Auto Body says that students graduating with automotive certificates after 8 years with them make in excess of $200,000. So that's the kind of CTE programs that I think excite us all.
So I think what you're hearing is direction from the board that we want to continue this moving forward, that we're very excited about it. We're very pleased that Mr. Tokarski and Mountain West are willing to make this type of investment in our kids and in our community. And there are going to be some decision points for this board as we get more information, but that the board is committed to moving forward with this and want to do what we can for our kids and our community in light of this discussion. So anything else? If not, thank you all.
Thank you.
We're adjourned.